Have you ever stared at your blog and thought, I just need to delete everything and start over? Like it is just too slow, too stuck, it's not growing, it has problem, it's not making me money, and fixing it feels like it's just so hard and it's better to just walk away. Listen, we've been there. When everything just feels too outdated and too broken, sometimes it feels like the only answer is a clean slate. But before you hit delete, let's talk. I'm Francesca.
And I'm Victoria, and in today's video, we are sharing the signs you need to look for when deciding to start fresh, how to know if it's just your setup holding you back, and if after watching you've concluded that you need to start over. We will share all the tips to help you start over from scratch without losing all the hard work you've put in over the years. So whether you need a full reset or you just need to tweak your foundation to work a bit smarter for you, we have you covered in this video. Okay, so here's the thing. Sometimes it is your foundation that is holding you back. So maybe you've been blogging for years, your blog isn't growing, which is affecting your income because yes, you need the traffic in order to cash in big with ads. However, despite all the tweaks you've been making, despite your perfect content structure, your traffic isn't budging, you're not growing, and of course, neither is your income. If that's the case, odds are maybe it's your blog foundation that is the problem.
So your blog's foundation has several elements that are really important for the performance. One of those first things is your hosting provider. Yes, where you host your site matters for performance, which will then also matter for your placement in search and your traffic, which will then translate to money. So you need to be with a host that gives you the best possible performance because you can have everything great on the back end and optimized. But if the resources of your hosting provider are not what they should be, you're still not going to perform as well as someone who is on that platform. So making the right choice in choosing your hosting provider is key. The next thing that is really important is having a light theme. Now we get really hung up on the aesthetics and making everything really cute, but a lightweight theme is so important for performance. So if you have something that is weighing your site down from a theme perspective, that will make a huge difference switching it to something else. And for right now, we are recommending Cadence as the best option for a lightweight theme. And again, we cover all of these details in our WordPress for Beginners course, so you can go and check all that out there as well. And now the other thing that I think is really important when it comes to the performance of your blog is plugins. We get really hung up on installing a lot of things that will make our site cute. So we think I want this feature because it's going to display like that, or even sometimes for ease. Maybe it's going to give me a shortcut for this or that. So don't get excited and install a whole bunch of plugins. But if you're already there, keeping that light and trimming that back can actually have an impact on the performance of your site. So looking at all of these things holistically will give you a great overview of the performance of your site and how you can improve that. Now, we do get a little bit more into the aesthetics conversation in another video, which I highly recommend that you check out as well. In all of the things from hosting to themes to plugins, we cover in the WordPress for Beginners tutorial. So I also recommend that you check that out, even if you are an existing blogger and you think you already know those basics, because we do go over the right settings that you need to have on all of these things. Don't add any bells and whistles. But I know Victoria has some experience with things like hosting and being on the right platform in order to have the performance to make money. So Victoria's going to tell us a little bit about that now.
Oh my gosh, this is a big one because, like Fran said, sometimes we really get super caught up in aesthetics. And that was my primary motivating factor when I moved my blog to Showit. So, Showit is a beautiful platform, drag and drop, stunning canvases, and I invested thousands to my website theme as well. So, again, this was a dream site. It looked stunning. Was I able to grow some traffic with it? Absolutely. It got to the point where I had to get their high traffic plan. But even with that option, it really limited my growth. There were so many things I couldn't optimize, which really held me back. And I also didn't have a lot of control because the Showit platform has limitations with their site builder. So even though, again, stunning website, I was able to grow to a degree, I had to move back 100% to WordPress because while Showit does use WordPress for the blogging elements, all the pages, all the templates, all the layouts have to go through Showit. And what I've learned more than anything else is that the least number of pathways your website has to go through in order to display information to people, the faster it will be. So that was another thing that was holding me back, was also page speed, because it's pointless if people are waiting forever for your website to load. So in my case, The content was good, meaning the information was good. I will admit the structure wasn't 100%, but we'll talk about that in another video and we'll continue to talk about structure. Even with the structure not being perfect, simply moving the website from Showit to Cadence, I saw a huge jump in traffic and page load times. So that was incredibly helpful to me as well. And also now being on Cadence and not all the plugins that I had and having a brand new install was the best for me. So did I have to build my pages again from scratch? Yes. Was I able to migrate my blog post? Absolutely. And did it work out the box from the jump? Yes, it did. However, again, migrating is stressful, which we all know it can be if you've done it before. It really is stressful. But also having a host that really has your back was helpful. So in my case, I received the benefit of moving to a lighter platform with Cadence, moving to a better hosting platform with Big Scoots, and having that brand new WordPress install where I was building my pages from scratch. I could then control the number of plugins because I've learned my lesson in the past that even when you install a plugin, it still leads to traces. And with all the bells and whistles and just making everything look cute, my database was growing. But here's the thing, my database was nowhere close to being bloated like Francesca's database. And that is the next thing we do want to talk about, because if you've been blogging for a really long time, you have lots of blog posts, maybe not as much pages, but you have a lot as well. You've installed, uninstalled plugins, you maybe got custom things, you probably have gone through the gamut of things over the years. And then your website just isn't working for you. You're not getting the traffic, you're not getting the growth. And of course, it's affecting your income. I think Francesca can share a thing or two about bloating her database.
Yes. Oh my God. That was such a hard time that I went through. And that is also because it's not something that I knew I had to pay attention to. I mean, I kind of did, but not really. I always thought the database is what it is. It's there to store this information and display it. However, what Victoria said is really important here, because anytime that you've ever installed a plugin or a theme for that matter, it leaves a trace behind. Anything that happens on your site leaves a trace behind. Every comment, obviously everything that you add to a plugin. Sometimes you're adding plugins and then create content inside of that plugin. Like for example, a gallery, and then you're going to create all these galleries. So anytime that you've added content to those plugins specifically, adds entries to your database. And the bigger this database gets, it affects your performance, because what happens is when somebody lands on any single blog post or page, your whole database has to be called in order to display that information. So keeping your database small is key to making sure that query that has to be done whenever something has to be displayed happens quickly. So here's what I did. Over the years, I installed a bunch of things, again, mostly for the aesthetics and for ease. I wanted to be able to display things inside of a blog post, for example, without me having to redesign something completely from scratch. And yes, that meant that I could save a couple of minutes in order to do that. But that also meant that now you can have plugin conflicts. Or like what happened to me, a lot of those plugins were not being maintained years later. So maybe that designer that created a plugin that you really love right now, at some point in the future, will stop maintaining that plugin because maybe it's no longer of interest to them. They're not making money anymore. They're doing something else. They've pivoted. So that can always happen. And then you're going to end up with plugin conflicts, or just simply with a plugin that is not compatible with the version of WordPress that you're on. That happened to me. And I have seen countless bloggers that still have this issue and have to deal with websites that have issues, whether it's on the front end or the back end as well, because even editing my blog post was so time consuming because everything was loading so slow. So what happened is I tried to fix it. And yes, you can try whatever you want. I migrated to a new host that improved it a little bit. I hired a developer and I spent a year working with developer, which again, great developer, I would still highly recommend, but there is only so much that they can do, which is what I learned after spending thousands of dollars and trying many things, because at the end of the day, all of these things that I did left all these traces behind, which are almost impossible to fix. Now, that may sound to you right now as if you are feeling validated and you need to just scrap your whole blog and feel like you have to lose everything. Now, here's the thing. I felt like that as well. And I thought I would just have to lose all the domain authority that I had with my one site and just start fresh with a completely new name, delete everything, start fresh, and forget everything happened, over 10 years of work down the drain. And I thought that for a while, and I sat with that decision for a while. And if that is you, let me give you permission to do something else. So I know this may seem a little scary, but it's got to be less scary than going for a completely rebrand into something new. What I ended up doing, and what I suggest that you do, is that you just start with a clean slate and start fresh, but without losing all of your data and all of your content. Now, here's the steps of how you're going to do that. The first thing you need to do when you're doing a migration or for a clean slate is do a backup of your whole site. You don't want to lose what's there, and anytime someone is touching something, anything can happen. So download your backup file so that you have it available for any eventuality that happens. The second thing you're going to do, and I do suggest you do this after you are on a good host, which again, we recommend Big Scoots, is have them set up a staging site. But they're not going to set up this staging site by copying your existing site. They will just give you a clean WordPress installation on a staging environment on your site. That means that you can work on it almost the same as if you were working on your existing blog, but nobody actually has that link. From that staging WordPress site, you're going to go through the process of installing everything just how we're going through it in our WordPress for Beginners course. So this is why I was telling you it is still valuable that you go through that course so that you know what are the plugins you need to be installing, what theme you're going to install, how you're going to do your settings, what settings to worry about and which ones not to. This will keep your site bare minimum. Now, what you're going to do next is you're going to bring over your content, same like Victoria did when she migrated from Show It, because she started also with a fresh, clean install on her staging site. And I did the same when my database was bloated. But then you can actually export your content from your existing site, which is still live, by the way, and you can import that into your staging site. Now, if you think that your content structure is a little bit different now and you've made a lot of mistakes in content, then you might be a little bit more selective into what you bring over, but that is entirely up to you. You can bring as much or as little of the content as you want. Again, remember you have your backup and you can always get stuff out of the backup if need be. So once you've imported the post and everything is now good, you're going to give it a once over. You're going to check that everything is good. You've installed your theme. You have everything looking how you want it to look. And when all of that is running nice and smooth on the staging site, then you will ask your host to make the switch. They simply flip a switch and they make your staging site live, and that replaces everything that you had on the actual live site that had all these problems. But you've actually started with a clean WordPress installation. There is nothing weighing down that database. There is none of the old hangups, the leftover plugins, the leftover themes. None of that is there, but your content is still there. So that is the easiest way that you have to actually give your site a clean slate without having to delete everything and forget that you ever blogged for a decade.
So now that we've given you two examples, one that was a strict migration to a new hosting provider, but then the other is more heavy on a new WordPress install because the database was so overloaded. Now let's talk about more internal things you might be feeling, deciding whether or not you need to move. Now on the technical side, you might be noticing just from you using your blog itself that it is super slow. Or maybe a reader who has been following you for some time has reached out and mentioned, hey, your page takes forever to load. A way you can objectively test this is by going to Page Speed Insights. So by visiting that site, you can input your information and you can see how long or how fast it takes for your website to load. I think if you're having speed issues, that can be a good reason for you to move. In my case, speed was a big issue. So by moving to a new host, I immediately started to see benefits in terms of my website load time. It decreased drastically. So that was one thing that was really helpful. Another reason why you might be considering moving could be you are receiving a lot of internal server errors when you try to visit your website. I used to get all those 500 errors. It was a nightmare. I even had readers sending me emails because I send a weekly newsletter and they would say, Victoria, we can't get to the website. This is not working. And it was just incredibly frustrating. And again, in my case, a move to a new host that had more resources was incredibly helpful. So if your website is super slow, if you're receiving a lot of errors, if you're experiencing this as a content creator, but even worse when you have readers complaining, I think it might be time for you to consider moving host, upgrading resources, and paying attention to some of those technical details. Or like we said, maybe a brand new WordPress install is just what you need. So get rid of all the baggage, start fresh, and then import your existing content. Now, let's talk about some of the internal things you might be going through. And this is more specific to a content level. How do you know if your content is working or not? Now, maybe your site structure and your blog post structure is to the letter. It's perfect. You have all your headings in the right place. You're optimizing everything on the back end, but you're just not getting that traffic. Now, I have found that lots of content creators spend so much more time creating and not promoting. And in the age of AI, Google search isn't your only avenue to get traffic, which of course will turn into income from your ad revenue. This is where I highly recommend looking for traction in new places. So maybe share your content on social media, creating a newsletter and sharing it with readers directly. and just really brainstorming and exploring new ways for your content to find your ideal readers. Another consideration you might have as it relates to content, which I will admit leans slightly into rebranding, has to do with the loss of traffic. So there are lots of bloggers out there and content creators who, after Google's numerous updates, have lost a lot of their traffic and as a result, a lot of their revenue. We have also seen where content creators immediately think that, okay, I need to rebrand this, I need to pivot, I need to change my domain name, maybe I need a new WordPress install as well. The one cautionary tale I do want to share with you is that if you intend on sharing the exact same kinds of content, but you lost a lot of traffic on your previous domain, please don't think that by changing it and starting over with a new brand name and everything from scratch will help to fix your problem. I actually think that you have built such a big name with your previous content that you were doing so well with. The name change might confuse readers, especially again if you're sharing the same content. As a person who lost a lot of traffic with the past Google updates, as I've been making changes to my internal structure and making it clear what I'm focusing on to Google, and also creating people first content and making sure everything that I share is super helpful, I have seen my traffic rebound over 100%. So sometimes it is not necessary to throw away the baby with the bathwater, or in this case, completely rebrand and change your domain name. Again, quick fixes are often not the solution. Now, if you haven't already, this is a perfect opportunity for you to check out a video about blogging in 2025 and blogging in the age of AI and ChatGPT and all these chatbots. Because again, we have seen bloggers get really despondent and just feel like there is no way their blogs can work and they can make the income they used to make in the age of AI and all these chatbots like ChatGPT. But actually, we are advocating that now you need to be blogging more than ever. So we'll include a link in the video's description and a card up here so you can check that out. Now, another content consideration that is worth discussing is maybe you are no longer interested in your current blog topic, or you would like to introduce new topics to your readers as well. Because again, we're human, we're interested in different things, life happens, and as a result, we want our content to grow and change with us. Now, the old school blogging advice used to be pick a niche and just get super targeted. For example, you could be talking about gardening, but then you need to get super specific. So it would be gardening in South Florida when it's sunny 300 days out of the year kind of vibe, or blogging in the UK in the north during winter time. Like, people were telling folks to get super, super targeted and niche. However, in the age of AI and or theses in the future of blogging, actually you need to be your best multi-passionate self. Share more things that you're interested outside of blogging in the UK, in the north of England during the winter. We don't need to get that granular. Actually, you can share your experiences gardening all year round, but also when you're not just gardening, you're also cooking in the kitchen with the produce that you are gardening. Or maybe you're trying to have a little small side hustle selling flowers from your flower garden during the season when they're in full bloom. So really consider taking your readers on a journey. If you've been blogging and you've been in that one niche and now you want to share more things with your readers, the first thing you need to know is that yes, we highly recommend you share this new content. However, you also need to give your audience time to adjust to this new content. They don't know this side of you. It's like you revealing a secret to folks that were friends with you for years. So you have to give them some time to adjust. If you find that you won't be sharing certain topics that you used to share religiously on your previous blog, maybe consider a website restructure as well, while inserting little bits of the things you plan to start sharing now. We also highly recommend that you share your journey with your readers, because we know 9 out of 10 times as content creators, the switch isn't always immediate. Sure, but more often than not, you have been stewing on this change for some time. Maybe you haven't been creating new content in your previous niche for some time, but you've been exploring it with others. I actually think it would be really helpful to create a post saying, hey, I have been feeling really burnt out about sharing this. In the meantime, I have been working on that. Be transparent with your audience. Again, we're human, and I think people would really appreciate hearing from you.
I think it's also important to know that as you're doing that rebrand, maybe things will fail and maybe some of that audience will not follow along for the journey, especially if you're going in a completely different direction. And that is okay as well. So ultimately, you're going to do what works best for you. Now, we also should consider at this point, if you are going in a completely different direction, if you need to change your name and your actual domain domain. So if you were going on the assumption of blogging before where it was very niche specific, and a lot of the advice before was also telling you had to have all of your keywords in the domain, that might be where you find yourself needing a completely new domain name and a new site and completely brand new identity. Now, if that is the case, I would highly suggest that you consider future proofing any issues by going with something now where your name maybe reflects you as a person, going with a personal brand, or something that is general enough that if you ever want to add some new interest or rebrand, it is flexible for you to do that. I think gone are the days where you need to worry about having keywords in the domain name. So always consider that as well. Now, if what you're thinking of doing is rebranding your domain name with something again that is still in the same niche, then definitely don't do that, please. But once you've taken all of those things in consideration, I think it's important to know whether you're just adding some different strategy. Maybe all you need is add social media to your strategy so that you can start getting your name out there, new, fresh group of people, new eyes, and promote your existing content. Like maybe you have enough blog posts and you just need to get new eyeballs to them. Or maybe what you've realized is that you've added no personality to all of those blog posts and everything feels very dead and like it could be written by AI. And if that is the case, then I think you need to just go in a massive editing binge of your old content and just add your personal take, your personal opinions, and just your personality, infuse that into every single one of your blog posts. But if you find that the problem is either on the back end technical side, then consider then either moving to a new host or maybe moving to a new host and also doing a clean WordPress install. So all of those things are things that you can consider later on, and that's going to depend on what are the issues you're finding and what is your current situation. So again, evaluate all of those things. We've given you a couple of pointers to figure out where you stand and then go from there. I think a lot of the bloggers have seen traffic dips and their content was actually well structured. Their websites were performing well, so they had the speed. And they are just concerned because they think Google doesn't like me anymore. Google's not going to recommend me anymore. And I am here to tell you that Google will still recommend you. My Google traffic is still increasing every single day. And that is just because I am changing how I'm posting, even though I am posting the things before they were telling you to post, but add more personality. People want to know you. We got to go back to the old days of blogging. And I think a lot of bloggers are not used to that anymore because they got into this very mechanical system of blogging, which will not work anymore. But if you are here to just create community, which is what a blog is supposed to be doing, then people will come and they will care about you and they will connect with you and Google will reward you and you will have the social traffic as well and you will build a loyal following.
Yes, absolutely. And definitely in the age of AI and beyond, people are not buying information, okay? They can get that from the chatbot real quick. Instead, they want to hear from you, they want to get your experiences, and they want to feel like, hey, there's someone else out there that is going through what I'm going through, and they know and understand me too. So at the end of the day, people first content is what will win and will help you future proof your blog, not just in the age of AI, but whatever else is there beyond. So again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video, and share the video with some of your other blogging friends too. All right. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. But until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.